It's fine right where it's at. What? A little bit.
It is 9 o'clock, so we'll get the meeting going here. Good morning. It's Tuesday, September 4th already. Welcome to the weekly Cudahy County Board of Commissioners weekly meeting. We'll open the meeting with the flag salute. Doug, you want to lead us this morning?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Couple housekeeping chores. If you got a cell phone, please silence it or turn it off. If you get a call that you have to take, please step out into the rotunda so you don't disrupt the speaker at that particular time. Also, this meeting is being streamed live, so if you address the board, you will certainly be on the stream. Is there anyone in the audience this morning that wishes to address the Board of Commissioners that is not on the agenda?
Myron, I'll have a couple individuals, they're just not here yet.
A couple of what?
Individuals
Okay.
that may want to speak, but it will be in concerning the budget hearing portions, so I don't know if you need to know that or, but they will be arriving.
We'll allow time for them if they aren't here when we have the on number 9, the provincial budget public hearing. If they're not here, we can slide them in during the open.
Okay, sounds good.
Terry has requested an exec session for later on in reference to contracts, so you're aware of that. So that being said,
Make a motion to approve the
we
agenda.
have a motion to
Second.
approve the agenda. Motion by Hatton, second by Van Duzen. Any additions, corrections? We already done that. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve the minutes of the August 28th
Move
meeting.
to approve as emailed.
Motion by Hatton, second by Lee Gable. Any corrections or additions? Lee, you had that one.
There is one slight change. On the courthouse remodel project, signing off on the certificates, per the request of Commissioner Gable, I did change that to just be phase 1, the clerk of court's office project, instead of all projects.
Yep.
So that way it might have been office that would come back and forth. So that's kind of what I meant, I guess, when we're talking about so much from the law stuff.
I have not signed off on that yet.
Yeah, we've been working for a few weeks, but
Yep.
when it comes, they're working through basically the gig list.
Yep.
So that wording has been changed slightly.
I'm okay with that.
All right.
Okay. Again, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's go on then to number 4. Action to award a bid for a fire alarm system postponed from August 28th. Who has that, Lee and Milo?
The first one. Sorry.
Talk right into the mic.
Good morning.
Morning,
Morning.
Milo.
After consultation with the Watertown Fire Chief, or Fire Marshal, it is my recommendation that we reject all bids for the fire alarm system. The particular design for this project basically, was designed with no sprinkler heads in use, which greatly increases the number of smoke alarms. So I think it would be in our best interest to go back to square one on this particular project.
Okay, you've heard Milo's suggestion. What are you looking for as far as time frame? Or you want to just leave it open and when you're ready?
I think actually in order to make this happen, just because of of the contractual stuff that's involved and the wording that's involved. In order for a fire alarm company to design a system, with a fire alarm in place, we need to have something on record that says we are going to have a fire alarm in place, versus just,
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, a sprinkler system in place.
So, Mr. Chairman, so with Milo and the fire marshal discussing this, and what it looks like is that we have. What it looks like we had is a fire alarm system designed as though the building did not have sprinklers in it. So that's why the prices were a little higher than we originally expected and had to go to bids. So it will definitely be less if we have, or at least if that system, the alarm system, is designed as though there are sprinklers in the building. So as we all know, we're in the process of doing that. The sprinklers are going in as a parallel project with the courthouse remodel right now in the basement and
Correct.
the first floor.
So to remove, excuse me for interrupting,
go
to remove the liability from the fire alarm company designing the system, just on our word that we're going to have a sprinkler system in place, we need
Well, the other
something in the minutes saying that that's going to happen within the next X number of years or something.
I think if I understood the fire marshal correctly, that what they would like is just say a letter stating our intent within the next few years to install sprinklers, and that way that gives him the kind of the power as the authority having jurisdiction for fire stuff to say to the fire alarm company that you're okay to design this as though the building has sprinklers.
So is that a motion, Lee?
I guess I'd
Put it in the form of a motion.
I'd move to reject the bids based upon that discussion. So.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Motion by Gable, second by Van Duzen. Any discussion?
So to follow this up, so I think what we need to do, Mr. Chairman, is maybe draft up a short letter to the fire department, to the fire marshal, to say that we intend to sprinkle the building. That gives him the comfort and the authority to say for us to put in a bid spec. So I guess we put that in, that the building was going to be sprinkled in the bid spec, but they work off of something more official. So that gives us something to put in the bid spec from the fire marshal to say that the authority having jurisdiction says the building's going to be sprinkled and to design it that way. So.
Okay. I'll go outside the table. Chip, will that work for you? All right. Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, Milo.
Thanks,
Lee,
Milo.
appreciate that.
Thanks, Chip.
Let's go on to monthly reports then. We'll start out as Jody. Jody just walked in, timed it just perfectly. Good morning, Jody.
Morning, Jody.
Still exhausted from the state fair.
Just got back from the state fair last
Yeah, I
night.
arrived at my house at 8:30 last night, so.
There you go.
Well, last time I saw you were just standing around.
All right, well,
Far
state fair just wrapped up yesterday, so just arrived home and catch up on things. But as we do wrap up, I have a few results from yesterday, but these are called unofficial until everybody gets back to their offices and may find mistakes. But our CDM team for seniors, I gotta catch my breath, is consumer decision making, and they received second in the state and third in the state. We have two teams, and we were 7.5 points away from a trip to Denver, so we'll see, maybe able to find some errors. And our beginner team got third in the state. So we had some really good representation, along with our juniors getting second in the state. So,
Awesome. Good.
so we have some really good results from that coming up. And kids will be starting picking up their exhibits. I still have to unload the van yet. It's still in the barn. So, along with the record books that will be coming up. And then our recognition event is October 28th. And we'll be sending out information on that. But kids will be finishing up their record books, kind of compiling everything they did this year. So that will wrap up our current 4-H year. And then our new 4-H year will start on October 1st. So kids can re-enroll again. And let's see. And our national meeting that I'll be going to is October 7th through the 12th. So it's about a month away. And that's going to be in Columbus, Ohio. So I'm excited to see some new ideas from the national meeting. That's going to be in Ohio. Our Extension Annual Conference is at the end of October, and then just want to thank all of our supporters and volunteers that help us throughout the year, and just even taking down the booth yesterday and packing up the van to get home and stuff too. We had 3 ladies that help me every year on Wednesday when we get all the exhibits judged, and stay until the whole booth is set up, so it's always nice to have those same ladies there every year. So,
Jody, on your trip to the National, I think you had a request that we would, what was that? Was that the National that you asked me about as far as the travel?
yeah,
expenses?
and just the travel. We have some funds coming from SDSU and our state association too.
And we okayed that?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's taken care of, all right?
Yep.
All right,
Yeah.
good. Any questions for Jody?
Good stuff.
Anything?
Sounds like they did well.
Yeah, they
good.
did. So
Did they
I
have
get to
fun?
see all the kids and to work with kids throughout the whole state too.
Yeah.
See them each year also. So
We did actually hear quite a few radio reports from the state fair this year, so some of the Cotting County kids, so good to hear from them. All right, thank you.
I was out Saturday, there was a
Thanks,
good crowd, so hopefully that was the same for the other days.
yeah, yesterday was probably the slowest day I saw there.
Sunday was pretty busy.
I was pretty much in the Nordby Center the whole week. So with
talked to
contests.
somebody that had been to the Minnesota State Fair on Saturday, and there was 74,000.
Jeez.
They broke a new record, I guess.
Wow.
I said, I wonder if we have that many all week at South Dakota. 74,000.
You just leave it on, Jody.
They said it's wall-to-wall people. Thank you, Jody.
They can handle it real easy. I mean, it's so much spread out.
Veteran Service Officer, Al. Good morning, Al.
Good morning. Okay, for the month
Take the
of
mic out,
August.
please.
For the month of August, we had 63 walk-in/appointments. We had 4 trips to Sioux Falls with 9 riders. We are busy planning for the Veterans Day program on November 11th. It is on a Sunday, and it will be held at 2 p.m. at the Cottington County Extension Complex. So we're busy getting that.
And it will be on the
It will be on the 11th at 2 p.m. Yep, just like we have in the past on Sundays.
All right. Anything else for Al? Any questions from anyone?
You said that's at the extension building, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Al.
Thanks, Al.
Back to work. All right, let's go to Sarah, Welfare Director. And you have some information in your packet in reference to Sarah's report.
Yeah, I also have handouts. Does anybody want a handout for the monthly report?
Sure.
Is it July?
It is July.
I did put that in your
It's in there?
packets.
Okay.
Yeah, I
I've
did.
got
I do have it
extra.
here.
I
did
made
make a
copies
copy.
because of that,
Okay.
glitch. Does anybody else want a handout? Okay, so for July, we had costs and savings with the utilities. We had a savings of $861, no cost. Medical savings $13,600. We had costs of about $1,400. Housing, we had savings around $1,500, costs of $270, and housing was the most where people were served, and that was 7. Type of services provided are listed there, just kind of the average. And referral to agencies, of course, ICAP had funding at that time, so they would be the highest. Energy assistance would be down at that time because their services start in October, so there are people that we're looking at that maybe got into new places, making sure we got them hooked to those services. Prescription program went back up a little bit. June had a low, and May and June were both lower, and then in July we prescription card program provided services to 26 people at a savings to the county of $1,200. Any question on that report? And then I'm going to just do a real brief recap with the Stepping Up program, which the committee is called, Lee, help me out,
Behavioral Health and Justice Working Group. The HIJWG.
Yes, there you go. Okay, so with the Stepping Up program, just a reminder that the 4 goals that we're looking at, and this is just a real brief. I do apologize. I had problems with both my printer and my computers this morning and last week. So when we look at the Stepping Up program, we have 4 goals, and that is to reduce the number of people with mental illness in the jail, booked into the jail, shorten the length of stay for people with mental illness in jails, increase the percentage of mental illness, people with mental illness is in jail connected to services, and then lower the rate of recidivism. And with each of those steps, there's an intercept that we know we can look at to connect that. So intercept 1 is the community 9/11 law enforcement. Intercept 2 is the detention center and the courts. And then you get into intercept 3, which is the courts. And intercept 4 is the reentry, and intercept 5 is the corrections. Then on your next page, there is that intercept 0, and that was added through the Stepping Up initiative of trying to even actually look at other places like the ER crisis, even before engagement of law enforcement, or at least try to divert to that. So this is a very rough, extremely rough baseline, is taking a look at those things on that 3rd page, the goals and what have we done. And I didn't have time to actually pull all that data. We'll see what we can do with that. So the page 3 that you have there that has your goals with measurement data and how are we achieving these goals. So reducing the number of people booked in the jail with behavioral health disorder. Two programs that we're doing that's in that intercept. 1 is to provide the inmates with mental health screenings at booking into the jail, and 2 is the behavioral health deflection program, and that's intervening earlier with individuals before they get booked that they have law enforcement contact related to possible mental health issues. It's connecting them to services with warm handoffs, follows up with at-risk individuals to connect them to services to manage mental health issues. So that one kind of crosses over. It's when the law enforcement has contact with them, and we're going to try to divert them out of that system before we even get anywhere in further on that program. Whereas the screening in the jail, they've been booked, and we're trying to identify those people that have some of those health issues. And then we're kind of looking at taking a look just to basically what this is just simplifying what we're doing and being able to try to communicate to you guys what we're doing. The mental health screening in the jail at the bookings, and then measuring some information of that is, what we need to do is measure the number of contacts, number of connection to services, number of follow-up contacts, number of clients following through those services. And then the outcomes is the number of positive screens, and that's reviewed quarterly, I do believe. And then with the deflection program, increase of client engagement. So then we look at reduce the length of time with mental illness in the jail. So since we started this program, we now do provide screenings to the judge, and he does set some mental health bonds for those inmates. It's a fairly new program, and it's not a significant amount of numbers. And it is the state that is tracking those bonds for us that we can request that data from. And so what we want to track with that to measure if we're making success is the number of days that flagged inmate stays in jail. And then also identify those inmates with those mental health issues. How many are getting referred to those bonds and report those outcomes.
Mr. Chairman, the definition of the word flagged in this case is a positive screen, basically, or did I miss that?
On the reduce the length, you would want to look at the flag would be those that have been referred for a bond, a mental health bond. Right. That your flag would be those that have been referred, because if they haven't been referred, we're not having an effect on the number of days. So that would apply to those that have been referred to the mental health bond. Like I said, it's a very new program, but that's something else that these are just right now. There's 3 programs that we've implemented in the last couple of years. Mental health bond.
And we're the pilot basically in that part of the program.
For the
state.
Yeah, for the state we are for the screening, and it's kind of like a pre-trial and the bond. For the state we're the pilot. For the behavioral health deflection, that's kind of actually a little bit nationwide the way we're doing it. The other option that the other places do is they actually have somebody on site, on call. That would cost us a lot more. Also, I don't know how we would justify the number of hours to cover those expenses. So that's a modification of that program that we had help from TASC, which is Treatment Alternatives Safer Communities out of Chicago. They helped us to modify that program. So then, your third is increasing the percentage of people with mental illness connected to the jail. Again, this comes through the mental health professional in the jail, and that's to provide those case managements to inmates that screen positive. And so what you want to do is you want to track what services the individual is referred to possibly, and that'll help us also identify if there's some gaps in the services. And so then we would want to be able to report the number of inmates that have an exit plan release from the jail. Okay, and then reduce the rate of recidivism among those with mental illness. So the mental health professional provided by HSA provides case management and warm handoffs to inmates identified with possible mental health issues. So what you want to track is if there is a no-show rate of those working in the program to see, because then you need to know what we need to do with that. It's really hard to track following, but for the jail, you'd want to look at the booking information 6 months from release date of participating inmates. So are you getting that recidivism? So this is a very, very rough draft, extremely rough draft, just thrown together, but it kind of simplifies the 4 goals and the directions and the steps that we've done. I've heard comments that what have we done? We've actually done quite a bit for a very short period of time, and those are kind of that. Overall.
Mr. Chairman, if I could jump on a couple of things that Sarah said. So as far as the going up, just looking at line number 1 on that chart where the outcomes, I mean, we are beginning to track the data. I mean, there's kind of a system between Sean, the mental health professional in the jail, connecting to HSA, and then looking at the number, kind of the prevalence of mental illness in the jail, or people with mental health issues in the jail. So that's making progress. That's taken a long time to figure out how to track that data, but I think we're starting to get a handle on that. And that's HSA. They have a data analyst that has been helping with that. And then on what Sarah was saying on the pilot program with the referrals. I mean, that's starting. That's kind of a connection between Judge McCann and the jail. That I guess, if I understand it correctly, that we think that might be helping. It's a little hard to tell the exact numerical impact, because that's the next part. That's a part where we kind of, below that first line is where we still need to work on how we're tracking the data.
We need time to have data to track.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, that's part of it too.
I suppose that will along with my question, how long before we can put numbers where those X's are?
Well, some of it I just didn't get a chance to look up. So some of that I just need to pull. This was just a quick rough draft.
So there are some numbers.
There are some numbers, and I can get that from the state. So what you have to understand, like with that mental health bond, I mean, Judge McCann's maybe doing 2 a week, and so your numbers are smaller, and so to get a real adequate or good look at the data, we kind of need some more time, but also you need time for that. What he does is instead of sending time in jail, they're released to get services. Yeah. So that individual's got to have some time to get the assessments and follow up on those services. So we just need some time to track that. I can't tell you if someone's followed through in 2 months. We need 6 to 8 months to determine if they followed.
The other thing to add to this is that you're dealing with multiple agencies. In some cases, it's the jail and HSA. In some cases, it might be the police department. So that we're looking at multiple places where we're pulling the data, and you have to get them all to match up. And that's some real expertise to do that. That's something I've learned over the past couple of years.
And it's not just our county. It's a statewide. One of the first things when I was on the mental health task force is we recognized we have no data. And that's what we also found with NACO at the national levels. Most counties do not have data. So this is all new for us to kind of gather this and track that and get those systems together of how we do that. We were fortunate, like with the state, with being having county representatives, judicial, and state on that mental health task force that we are able to work with, like I work with Greg Zadazon, can you tell me how many were referred? So we've got some of that we didn't have before, some of those connections that we didn't have, and some access to that information.
Right.
Years ago, a couple years ago, this is all brand new, so we're doing very well. I know it when you're working the program and when you're watching it, you want it to go a lot faster and come together a lot faster. It seems like it should, but really we are. I think we're doing very well for the amount of work and stuff that we're doing with that.
I can tell you from our standpoint, I had a chance to visit a little bit with our records clerk at the police department this morning, and I asked how things were going as far as communication, and she's been very happy with the way things are going right now. And she says some weeks there could be 5 referrals or might be 0. It all depends on the week, but I can tell you one thing, and that's that the program has reduced our amount of recontact with a lot of these people. So it's
We're talking about the deflection.
yeah. So it's working.
And I'll go over that in a minute. I've got some more information. No, that's a great point.
So when we're talking about data, though, working with Erin from Sioux Falls, she's got that program that, and we were further along that we could have had some of that information.
That's a good question. I've been talking to her about that. So they don't have that up and running yet. So, but they're planning to. We're talking about a thing with the data-driven justice initiative, Open Lattice, and using a couple different things. There's a behavioral health aspect to it, but there's also the PSA, which is a screening tool for the adult population as well. But we need to have a little bit more discussion, I think, with the judges to make sure that and law enforcement in general to make sure that we're all good to go with that. I personally like the idea, and so I've been talking. I had a phone call with Erin last week about what the next steps are. So they're a little bit ahead of us because they've kind of done that, had that discussion. So they're kind of just ready to go. So there's a lot of technical questions. They do have to pay for some of the data analysis and some of the process of getting the different data sources to plug in automatically to that system as opposed to entering it manually. But I think it's going to be, if we get it clicking, I think that'll be really good.
Because she said we were further along as far as data than
in some ways, yeah.
They are.
And so, in some ways of just what we're talking about here, I think it's thanks to this program that and some of the jail stuff, but it's as far as kind of getting it all properly kludged. That's a technical term.
So when we first started this program, there was the DDJ, the Data Driven Justice. Cottington County was a part of that. And there are monthly meetings. If either one of you guys want to participate in those, I can give you that information that you can sit in and you have that up to date. It does 2 things. It gives you the up to date where they're at with that Open Lattice, but it also gives you the different programs and different ideas. And usually you can go back and watch those webinars. It was getting hard for me to track both the NACO and the DDJ, so I don't attend, I'm not usually listening into the DDJ, but I do get those emails and I can forward those to you right with those meetings. The second thing is, if you remember when we had those interns from Harvard and all that, they put together a compilation for us that shows the cost effectiveness of that program. So if you'd like me to forward that to you as well. We had presented it, but I think it was before we had that basic knowledge. Now that we have that might be some information for you guys to take a look to see, okay, how can we put that together. I am very hopeful too, as Minnehaha is doing that. Hopefully Pennington will be as well. And if we do, we can actually get our state to come together to try to gather all that data. So I think it's exciting. It's exciting. So thank you. I'm glad you guys brought in Erin for that and we've had that opportunity. That's wonderful. So
I looked when we were at that conference. I looked over in our computer screen and I was just amazed. Like, how did you get this? So we need to do this.
Yeah. So, and I can show you, because at that time, and I haven't been following, at that time when we were first looking at, there was just a cost to install it, just a basic one time. I think it was about $20,000. But then we show the cost effectiveness. I can forward that to you. Just send me an email if you want that, and that'll be my reminder to send it to you.
And they have
that done.
Have received some pretty sizable grants along the way when they can show. So
that data is very important for that information.
All right, Sarah, do you have more for us?
I do. Okay, so I'm going to just, unless this is more about the deflection, I'm fine, done with my reports.
All right, okay, then we're going to go on to number 6 on the agenda, and that's action to extend the behavioral health Reflection Program contract through 2018. That's where you want to go with this now.
Yeah, so right now, I'm going to give you 3 things of information. Let's see. Okay, so if you just, Lee, I'm going to hand this to you. Take the 2 top copies and pass that down. I gave it to Charlie already. Yeah, where they turn, just, so take the 2. Charlie, here's the secondary. Just pass those down. And then this third one will be just take it, each direction is, so it's the 2 top copies and then pass it down. This is for Cindy.
That's for Cindy, I think. That was an extra one for her.
Okay, the first is just a review again on that. Okay, so this is the first one we're going to look at, and this is just, you guys had this about 6 months ago. That's just a reminder of what the deflection program is.
Yeah.
Kind of like what Troy said, the deflection program is contacts that don't lead to arrest and that are cleared on scene and not connected to services. So like Troy kind of alluded to, is that this is helping law enforcement to reduce their contacts, and then if we're connecting them to somebody else besides, we're hoping to reduce 2 things. Hopefully it'll reduce a future involuntary commitment, but also it will reduce, hopefully, to the potential of someone going to jail, actually escalating to services that end up committing a crime. So what happens on that pilot program, just a reminder, is that after behavioral health is contacted, the law enforcement refers them to the deflection program, and Sunny handles that. Sunny then works to involve the participant with services. We've made some changes, and Sunny and Dwayne Kavanaugh are going to be presenting at the September meeting, Behavioral Health Justice meeting, just giving you a little bit more of some of the changes that they do. I can tell you right up front, Sunny now has a cell phone, so law enforcement can contact her directly, and she also has a business card that can be handed out. The other thing that we found that we needed to kind of tweak was people can tend to shy away if they hear that the services is counseling. So when they hear the word Lutheran Social Services or anything like that, they're more likely to say no. So we removed that title and they just talk about it as far as it's a county program of outreach services. And that has hopefully helped. We weren't getting a lot of referrals, so the end of, is it the end of June? July?
June.
We presented to the Watertown Police Department to all shifts, and that has then increased the connections, and we have 3 to 5 of those per week. And so this was the data that we had at that time till April. And then the secondary sheet, this is when I started having issues with my computer. It will not print color. But today, this kind of tells you the number of referrals and the different type of services that individual's providing. And one of the things that we noted through the program is a lot of people have basic needs that need to be met. And so some of those behavioral issues are coming out of whether they need health care or electricity or they're getting their medications and some sort of financial income or housing. If you look at that housing and the psychotropic meds are up there. That's what that service, that's what makes it unique. They don't necessarily, they might have a counselor or they might have those other services, but this is in addition to that. And we find that if we can meet those basic needs, then they might be more open to counseling at that time. With LSS and the program, they only charge services provided. So if they're not putting in the time, it's just charged per provided. So if 1 week we get 2 referrals, and that's all they have, that's all that Sunny follows up with in her current active cases, then that's all we get charged for. We also recognize that this is the most difficult population that we're working with. This is the population that does not want to engage in services. So we know that the numbers of those accepting is going to be lower. That's just, we understand that. in any of the programs that are out there, it's a low rate anyways of follow through. This is that population that says, I don't have a problem. And so that it is a more difficult population. The idea is to help reduce the time of law enforcement. Every time we can get somebody connected to those services, then hopefully that the next time they'll maybe call Sunny instead of law enforcement. And we're starting to see that. Instead of calling the law enforcement, they'll give the deflection program officer a call. That reduces the law enforcement time. And we hope it also improves the outcome. We believe it improves the outcome. Instead of calling law enforcement, what are you going to do at 2 o'clock in the morning with that individual on that? So within that program, currently expenses to date, I did your 12-month program. So far, we had only expended $17,000 of the allotted 29, almost 30,000. And so we have a budget remaining of 12,500. The contract was to be renewed in August. Fortunately, I was unable to present to do that. We do have enough funds in the program to run the program through December with the original costs, and what I'm requesting is that we use those funds to run the program through December, and then in September, Dwayne and Sunny will present more at the Behavioral Health Deflection, or at the Behavioral Health Justice Working Group Committee, and we can bring more information to you guys to ensure the cost effectiveness. This is different than CIT, and I'm going to let Troy kind of talk about how that is.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a motion that we do that? I'll make a motion to extend then we can maybe
All right,
proceed with the
we have a
discussion.
motion by Gable.
Wait, what's the motion?
To extend
the contract.
the Behavioral Health Deflection Program contract through 2018.
Okay, what's the dollar amount?
You're just using this 12,
Well, then
as I understand,
we're
just using
not going to go over that.
yeah, just using that. I mean,
Look
yeah,
at the
just using that.
projected, that's with using if she used the full 15 hours a week, which she never
Yeah,
has.
but that's the money applied to that, as I understand what Sarah just said.
That's my
motion.
actually a pre-budgeted number.
Yeah, so that's my motion.
Okay, you heard Commissioner Gable's motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Waterman. Second, any more discussion?
Yes, I would let Sarah.
I just want to try to touch on the difference. I think I've heard some.
Let's finish this up first.
Well, I think the key, the point is like, are you talking about the difference between this deflection program and CIT?
CIT training.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, CIT training is first of all, it's coming up again for the law enforcement that hasn't been through that program, but it's intervention training for law enforcement that respond to somebody that's in a crisis type state who's made a comment about harming themselves or someone else. Law enforcement, based on their training, can go in and clear that individual so that they don't have to be taken into custody and detained until they can be evaluated by a mental health provider. That's really cut down on cost for agencies and the county to be able to do that. The behavioral deflection program, the idea behind that is to, when law enforcement does a referral to Sarah's office or to Sunny, is for them to follow up with that individual so that we can cut down on our repeated contacts with that individual over time, because there's a mental health issue going on there. That's the difference between the two, okay? So CIT is for law enforcement to go in and clear that individual. Behavioral health deflection is repeated contact to ensure that that individual isn't a repeated customer that we have to continually go back and deal with. And I can tell you, and this goes back to what I said earlier, Sarah kind of jumped the gun on it, but speaking with our records clerk and some of the officers at the police department, that program is working for us. We've seen our numbers actually cut down on our repeated contacts with these individuals that are in that state. So kudos to you. I believe in the program. I think it's a great program, and it's got my continued support.
And in addition to that, we're also looking at if an officer identifies somebody that's heading towards that, where they might get to that crisis point, they can refer him as well. Prior to that, there is no referral. So maybe somebody's behavior is just a little bit off, some odd stories maybe, different things like that. And so we have had cases where the individual was maybe referred to adult services and aging because we were able to catch the onset of early dementia earlier in the state and before they got to that point. Because what you're looking at is if you do have someone that gets committed, that's an involuntary commitment, and that's a traumatic event for anybody. I don't think you can go through that and not call that traumatic. So we're trying to divert that, catch it sooner, so it's at that intercept 1 to that intercept 0 type stage. The law enforcement has to see that it benefits the person, and then the other thing is they ask that individual, are you open to having law enforcement contact you? And what's interesting that I noticed in July's data, we had some individuals that they had contact repeatedly with 4 or 5 times. That person still said, yes, Sunny can contact me, but when Sunny calls, they said no. So we know we're working with them, but at least they're open to that contact. You know, I said, okay, but at least they're open to that contact. So hopefully we have that conduit to be able to say, okay, maybe one of these times they'll say yes. But as long as they're willing to say yes, person says no, we don't, Sunny doesn't follow up. So
that's my concern, is unable to contact, we have 84. Refused, it's at 57. How many have actually gone through with it?
The accepted and the base case management. So accepted means that they're more of an intensive program. That's 14 of them. And the basic case management is 21. The unable to contact is that whatever number they gave the law enforcement or the address is not accurate. And so we're not able to actually, and once in a while Sunny has found that the phone services was disconnected and she was able to contact them later. Even with that refuse, they were still allowing her to contact. So like I said, we know that this is the most difficult population. We anticipate, in most programs, if you even have 30% on those that are immediate, you've done very well. So we anticipated that it would be lower. It's not a big significant cost. It's just a quick call. And you try that. She tries it and she does a letter. And that's also the other thing that we're trying to increase that connection. And I think when we did the presentation, that really helped because now law enforcement has a name and they have a card to be able to say, hey, here's Sunny. So when that person gets that call, you have to remember, they might actually have bonds. They might have a warrant out for their arrest. They might owe child support. So when they get that call, some of these people don't want to talk to anybody because they don't know what actually is on the other end.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be a little resistance. But the more we get that word out of what she's doing and that she's not there to get them into trouble or to make sure they do A, B, C, and D, but to say meet for them where they're at, what can we do to help you? That's where we're hoping to increase that. We do still anticipate those numbers to be lower.
One of the contacts that I can remember that I had with an individual that I did a referral to Sunny on was he was a transient in town. He had no place to go. He had lived in Watertown at 4 or 5 different addresses before moving on, and then he came back and didn't have any place to stay. So he gave me his last known phone number. And so, when we try to call it, it's disconnected. And so you don't know. I mean, you take what you can get, and I know that they're trying to follow up with them. So sometimes those people are very hard to track down.
So like you said, they end up moving.
Move,
They're in
yeah.
that crisis, and if it's on a Friday, let's take the holiday weekend. Friday, the law enforcement got the call. Sunny isn't going to get the referral till Tuesday. They might have got the Dodge out of town before then.
But she has the cell number.
Yeah.
Is this 14 number part of the 21, or are they two separate? Do you add them together, that's total?
No, that's two separate. So the basic case management means they just had some basic needs that they felt that they needed, but they weren't interested in counseling services at that time. The 14, they're saying, I have some longer term, I'm willing to work with you at that time. So.
And the other question, just following Commissioner Hanton's question, so the numbers on the right, the services received chart, those numbers correspond to what the accepted in the basic case management?
Yes, and an individual can receive more than one services, so your numbers aren't going to add up because one individual might have 3 or 4 services. Yeah.
I think the one thing that I noted here is the fact that through our discussion here is the fact that we are working side by side with HSA and LSS.
And the city.
And police department. And for Lutheran Social Service or Human Service Agency, HSA, we use these acronyms. We need to, and the individual that you were referring to several times is the individual that works with LSS.
Yeah, on this program, but she may refer people
Right.
to Human
Yeah.
Service Agents because they're the individuals that have the funding for people that don't have insurance.
The only way that we're going to get a handle on this is if everybody works together, and that's what I see happening. You know, the more the merrier, but we all have to, this is not an individual problem, this is everybody's problem. We all have to, you know, work together. My question is, Sarah, we have a motion and a second on the floor to extend the behavioral health deflection program contract through 2018. What happens January 1st of 2019?
So in the interim, before that, with October, with the county's budget, it is budgeted for the program to continue, but it's my understanding that people want some more information. We have Dwayne Kavanaugh and Sonny Martin coming to the September, I think it's 18th meeting, 7th, 18th? September 18th meeting. So if you want some additional information about the program, and then we're going to
Do
work.
you have a request in the budget?
Yes, it
for
is, yes.
2019 now?
Yes,
What
yes,
is-
the request is there. But we want to get the information to you guys beforehand so you can make the decision when we want that in.
Is this the first year that we've actually had a full $30,000 in that budget line?
Last
Or
year.
is that last year? Last year was? Okay.
Is that the amount that you have in for 2018?
We did, yeah, based on the contract.
I guess I don't know if I'm sold on this program. I want to see more data, or maybe we can use these funds in a better way.
Which program are you referring to? Is it this program?
The deflection program.
Deflection program?
Yeah, the deflection program. I'm just not sure about the data on some of this, so anyways.
Yeah, I think, as I understand what Sarah said, so Sonny and Dwayne are going to talk about that at the next Stepping Up / Behavioral Health meeting, so we can,
And I think even like what Troy said, you know, it reduces their contact and the time that they're spending in the field so they can do those things. And it's, if you look nationwide at the different programs, our numbers aren't too off.
You know, and I'm probably one that can speak from experience of having to deal with these people over time and time and time again. I can definitely see the value of the program. I think it's a valuable program for our community. It's taking steps to fill a need that have for so long gone unattended. And so...
Because the question goes, what happens if this service goes away, Troy? What does your law enforcement do if they say they run into a house, in the house the person has no utilities and are going to get evicted? What do you guys do?
Well, I mean, you know, we try and reach out to the resources that the community are providing. I mean, it's pretty limited.
So this is an individual that reaches out to them. That's the difference. They're following up.
the person that does that, yeah.
Okay, thank you for your input, Troy.
That's if they
Appreciate that,
do.
too.
That's where we're at, so anyways.
Any more discussion? We've had some good discussion here in reference to these programs. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify the motion, though, that this is just to extend the contract and then use the funds that are still there.
They're still there.
So we're not talking...
Is that the exact wording for your motion?
Okay, let me see. Where's my... Where'd I put it? Okay.
Repeat the motion.
Yeah. So the action is to extend the motion is to extend the behavioral health deflection program through the end of calendar year 2018, using the funds that are allocated in calendar year 2018. So the existing funds.
Got it, Cindy?
So if it doesn't last till December, it's done, whenever those funds run out.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
All right.
Commissioner, you second the motion. Are you okay with that? Can you clarify? All right. Any more discussion? Any more? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Dealing funds through the end of the year. Let's go on then to number 7. Auditors. Action to authorize the auditor's office to prepare and pay claims.
The reason for this request is because next Tuesday is the second Tuesday of the month when we normally pay claims. If we don't pay our claims, you know, on the second Tuesday, we are going to incur late charges on a number of them. So I'd like authority to go ahead and get the claims prepared for payment and then have you approve the claim list when you come back on the 18th.
Would you want me to
I'll make a
sign
motion
No.
to, make a motion to authorize the auditor to prepare the pay claims.
All right, I have a motion by Hatton, a second by Giel, to authorize the auditor to prepare and pay claims because we will not be meeting next Tuesday. Any more discussion? Any more? Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's go on then to number 8, action to purchase additional cameras and monitors for the clerk of court's office. Lee, you might mention this, and this is in your packet, the request and the costs.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, this is a Milo obtained, so I think from Safe and Secure, they're the subcontractor, and also they also provide the equipment, similar equipment in the jail, but they're the subcontractor with the current remodel project. And so once the clerk of court's office got in the space, they realized that some of those desks could not see the service counter because of the 2 columns that are holding up the building in front of them. So that's kind of an issue. So what this would provide would be a connection to the cameras that are there. I think an additional camera, but the big expense here are it's the software and the 2 monitors. There's a camera too. There's 1 camera.
We can't just add cameras. We have to add software as well.
I think the software goes with the monitor. I believe that's how it works. So anyway, I believe that's how it works. I'm not.
Common sense I would think if there's cameras in there, if we had a couple more cameras, we could.
This does add 1 camera. There's already an existing camera in the lobby that the clerk of courts can see. So this is adding. Essentially, the goal is to add a couple monitors that everybody.
Just 1 camera.
Yeah, there's 1 camera, and then this would add an additional one. Let me see here.
Monitors.
It says labor charged to include installation of equipment for 1.
Yeah, the bottom line is that we're adding 2 monitors for all the clerk of courts personnel to see when people are in the lobby is basically what that is. So that's basically the goal of this whole request.
All right, this is a change order.
It's actually not part of the, technically it's not, but I guess, same.
I'm looking at Commissioner Waterman.
Yeah.
So that total is actually wrong. It would be $215.30 less because there's no sales tax for county.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to bring up.
Be
The other thing is
$3,312.
to bring up, isn't this the same company that's doing the one in the jail?
It is.
Well, I'm questioning the mileage because if they get done with their job, then are they going to go back to Sioux Falls and come back? Or are we being double billed for that $81.60?
Welcome to the world of business.
I'd have to ask.
I know, it's a question I've asked for years.
Yes, I'd have to ask.
And it's been asked several times.
Now you pay coming and going. It's called the backhaul.
96.
It's to Sioux Falls.
Oh, 96.
The total number, anybody want the total number?
Yes, the total number is the number without the sales
It's
tax.
$3,312.28.
Yeah.
All right, any more discussion? Good question though,
Yeah.
Commissioner Waterman.
And we get the loyal customer discount.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Gable. Is there a second? By Waterman. All right, now any more discussion?
Which budget is this coming out of?
I guess we should probably take it out of the building, or well, you could either take it out of the court other services or the building. I would think we should take it out of the government buildings, probably. Is that typically where you do this?
I guess it just depends on the project.
I guess
Has
it's kind of-
Milo budgeted for this? That's
Yeah,
the
I guess
other thing.
I think maybe we should just consider it kind of like part of the project, I mean, effectively, so that would be my recommendation.
Okay.
So take it out of the,
All right, any more discussion?
I would agree with that.
okay, so
And
government.
you're all right with that?
I'm just fine with that.
All right,
And
any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, at this time, we always set aside time during the month of September for the budget hearing in reference to 2019. And at this time, I think I can open it up to the public.
Yes, you can.
For any input from the public, is there anyone? By the way, in your packet, you do have a copy of the budget for 2019. If you want to refer to that. Is there anyone in the audience today that would like to address the board in reference to the budget?
I probably need to propose what I am thinking before those folks will be able to talk, so I don't know, do you have to do it, open up to public first, Cindy?
Yeah,
Yeah, the public hearing is...
it's a public hearing, yeah.
Okay, well, I guess then go ahead and speak to it and I'll finish up.
I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Well, I guess it's kind of, what I'm going to propose is to add, in addition to the budget, is what they will be referring to. So,
Who are they?
a couple of gentlemen in the crowd, Matt Kranz and Bruce Hested.
All right,
So-
let's hear from them then. Who's going to be the spokesperson?
Just ask you to take the mic there and talk loud and clear into the mic if
You
you
gotta
would for me.
talk right into it. Otherwise, Don can't hear over there. We gotta blame somebody.
He yells at us.
It must be David. Morning,
guys.
gentlemen. You should introduce yourself so that the press will know who's talking.
My name is Bruce Hested.
Matt Kranz.
We've been involved with a group of citizens that have a concern for reducing recidivism in the county jail. We feel that one method to do that is to have some type of a transitional home where these people could go, select people, and where we would provide guidance for them in securing employment. We would provide a roof over their head. We would provide continuing life learning education, such as how to hook a trailer to a truck. Some of them don't know that. And so our proposal is to do that in the community of Watertown. The jumping to the bottom line, and please kind of ignore these, those are rough drafts, I'd throw them. But basically it costs about $25,000 to to keep an inmate for a year in the county jail. Our estimate, and we're trying to be very conservative on this, so I believe it is high, is it would cost us about $15,000 per person that went through this program of bringing them off the street, having a place for them to go, getting them to work, etc. That would provide a net savings to the county of $25,000 for every person that we graduated through this program. So we're looking at basically $25,000, what it costs to run them through jail, versus $15,000, which we figure would be our cost to put them through our program, $10,000 net savings. Second year, if they do not go back to jail, and statistics show that recidivism drops to any place from 15-20%, that $25,000 per year would go on indefinitely. So what we're here to do today is to give you a heads up on what we're doing. We've been here before and talked about that. We'd like to see you put it as a line item in the budget. We're going to try this on a prototype with about 10 people, 4 men, 4 women, and 2 parents, single, double with children. And our cost at $15,000 per 10 would be in the neighborhood of $150,000. These people will be required to work and pay back rent, pay back room and board, and also provide savings for them so that when they do go up back on the street, that they'll have money for down payment into an apartment, a house, or wherever they go. So that's why we're here today.
Bruce. Okay. Maddie, you want to add anything to that?
No, basically, Bruce is a better speaker to this. He's been involved in this before I ever got started. And I came online just because I'm on a jail committee, thinking that we need to do something besides put people in jail. We need to rehabilitate them and try to help them, because most of these people don't have a family setting that's, I don't know what the word would be, normal. I don't know if there is a normal family setting in the world, but mom and dad maybe are not part of a maternal and a fraternal action. They don't teach them no and yes and how to behave in that scenario, and so they go off on tangent and end up in the jail. So with that being said, then they go back home after they're in jail, and they're back in the same environment, and nobody is doing anything to help them get out of that environment. And I think that's where Bruce and I and others have been trying to work toward.
Okay.
Just one more thing, Myron, if I may. Taking a random survey at drug court, and we would probably use candidates from drug court for this program initially, but taking a random survey up there, there's going to be from 40 to 60% that could use a place like this. Taking a survey as we sit with jail inmates, which we do every Tuesday, we go in there for a small group meeting, probably half of them could use some place to go. If they don't have it, they will tell you flat out, I'm going to go out in the street with the clothes on my back, and if I don't have a place to go and some kind of a support system, I will be dealing drugs, or I will be back to what I was doing, and I will have money in my pocket by 6, 7 o'clock tonight. Reality.
All right, any questions for the commission? Please.
Mr. Chairman, so what you're talking about here is a building, so like with drug court, that's a prison alternative, not a jail alternative. And then we have Serenity Hills, which I realize that's not all the capacity that we could use for some of those, and that's the Department of Corrections dealing with that. So are we talking about a building? Are we talking about a staff for case management? Are we talking about a study to kind of understand this better? Or I know you went through it, but maybe it was just me not following. And what amount of money are we talking about?
Well, what we're looking at is currently right now there's 2 or 3 locations that we're looking at. We're trying to focus in on one of those, but and one of them being Serenity Hills, not Serenity Hills per se, but the Midwest Bible Camp with Hank Rosa out there.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So we'd like to ask the county for $50,000 to $75,000 to help us out and get this program rolling, and then probably get it into a line item down the road. We feel it's a community issue. We're going to go to the city with the same proposal, and we're going to go to the public, community foundation, etc. So it's not just on your shoulders.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I couldn't be on the county. So kind of the model you're looking at is something like a Beacon Center or a Boys and Girls Club as far as the funding. It's kind of a public-private kind of.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? I haven't had a chance, just received this, I haven't had a chance to review it and look at it, and I have several questions, and they would probably be similar to the ones that Lee would have as far as, like the process, the procedure, the curriculum, on and on and on. Being an educator, those are the things I would like to see, but I certainly want to uphold this group for taking the lead on this project, and we appreciate what you're doing very much. And when we finalize the budget in our November meeting, is that right?
Correct, on the 25th of
Well, I think
September.
when
September.
When we close
September.
the public portion of this hearing and go to the board session, we'll probably hear a motion or something to make a change in the budget, okay?
I would add, throw this, because I've redone it since I've been in here, but, and I'll get it current information.
That would help.
Bruce and Matt, I want to echo what these two have said about, I commend you on your work with this project. I have a lot of questions that I think I would like to have answered before we make the dive into the budget process of putting that much money aside. What is the plan with these people once they get into the facility? Who's going to manage the facility as far as staffing? How is it going to be handled? So, I mean, I know that we're not asking for a huge contribution, but those are some questions I think that I would like to have answered.
And I would love to answer those. Part of it, it's the chicken before the egg. Is it the chicken or the egg? I mean, we're volunteers. We have nobody paid on staff.
Right.
And so whatever's put together is put together by someone.
I can tell you, I've been to the NACO conference. I just got back from Denver from the ICAP conference. This is the trend. We're not in a unique situation that all these communities have found that their jails are bursting at the seams, and so they're also doing these transitional homes, halfway houses, to try to stop the recidivism. That's the biggest problem that
What does
there
the
is.
staff look like? I mean, who are the people that are going to manage and make sure that these people get back on track? That's my question.
24/7 is our plan, and we've got to have people in there.
Yes.
And-
I mean, and these are things, it's a work in progress, honestly. We went down to the St. Francis House. They have a great policy and procedure that has been emailed to me. I have also now been in contact with Cindy Dannenbrand, the executive director at ICAP, who thinks that maybe they can help us manage some of these programs and get some of these programs in place. So it's still just a work in progress. It's just because right now, with it being our budgeting time, is, it's kind of just the time we have to do it. But these are all things that are being worked on and thought about and talked about. And I mean, honestly, we don't want to put something into place that's going to fail.
So what you're asking as far as the budget from this commission is just funds that will help get that process kick-started to give
We have
you-
people ready to go. They're coming out of jail every day. And we have them ready to go. A, we have no place to go yet. B, we have no staff. C, we have no money.
Right.
So we got to start someplace.
It's
And
all
we're not
just,
going to hire
yeah,
staff. without-
working together, meshing together. Okay, I lost my train of thought of where I was going to go.
I think that's just a couple suggestions that may be a direction to take this, because I think we all agree that this is good to do. I mean, just from being a jail building guy, I mean, my perspective is anything like this we can do will make whatever facility we build last longer. I mean, because it's going to, so that's that. So we got to be doing this along with all the other things we're trying to do to control the jail population. Just a thought though on the process might be to take some of this first year just to figure out exactly what to do, like how many staff you need. Is a facility the best thing? Maybe it's more just a case management thing of finding the connections to housing or whatever they need. But reentry is the main thing, obviously. Just maybe, I don't know if there's somebody maybe in ICAP or Sioux Falls, how did they get started? Did they bring in a consultant that helped them develop a plan? That kind of thing.
And
Maybe that would be
exactly where we're going with Cindy now. She's going to meet with a group of us. We've just been trying to do this, and it's just figuring out the steps. And like we talked about, the drug court candidates, they already have case management. Those are, and it's also important, there's a lot of those folks that are denied because they don't have clean housing.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. The thing is, as far as putting it into action, kind of helping us come up with an implementation plan. Maybe that's where we ought to spend the money initially, or whoever spends it, whether it's the county or somebody else. Maybe that's just coming up with that plan so that whatever we do in the long run is more effective. So it's just a thought, because Ping's,
allocation of budgeted funds is all.
It's going to take funding to do that as well, so I mean,
what I'm saying is maybe that's where, maybe initially where we want to point
We'd
more
like
of
to
the
see a
effort
plan.
right.
initially. So,
Provide me with somebody who can put a plan together, please.
well, that's the point. That's the point. Maybe
Well,
that's
I
where we should
think
take the
Cindy,
budget.
the executive director from ICAP, will be a great resource for us
Help
on
you
that.
find somebody.
We know what we want, we just got to figure out a roadmap to get there.
Right?
And I think that we're willing to look at that and assist with that process.
They already do this in Sioux Falls.
Right.
And they proved that it's working. So what you've just asked for is in place in Sioux Falls.
Right.
And at Aberdeen. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel, gentlemen and ladies. It's already there. All we have to do is copy it.
Right.
Because it works. It's a proven fact.
Well, then let's,
So maybe what we do, to answer your question, which is going to come up again and again, give us somebody who can do this for us. Help us by supporting somebody who could put this program together. You're dealing with volunteers.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I think we're saying.
We'll start with Cindy, and I think we'll get some direction there.
We need a coordinator. That's what it takes.
And that's
He's a coordinator.
ICAP coordinates a lot of different missions, so, okay.
All right, thank
So
you.
how
Thank
soon
you.
do we have to know what their official request is for budgetary purposes?
25th of September.
25th of September.
25th of September.
We'll get together and decide a dollar amount, yeah.
Yeah.
So you gentlemen come to the council with 21 days left, and you want between $50,000 and $75,000.
That's conservative.
Okay, $100,000. In the meantime, we're putting $50,000 or up to $50,000 in for a jail study, and we're trying to do the same thing. Now we got yin and yang going together.
We're going to have to steal from Peter to pay Paul here, so these requests that are coming in, right, Cindy? We need to weigh them, and remember, we're representing the whole county, you know, so we've got to answer to our taxpayers. I think everybody here, as you see, are really in favor and really look at your proposal here, and I think it's a good proposal, a good deed.
If you could keep someone from going back to jail the rest of their life, would the county buy into that?
I certainly would, but there are people out there that wouldn't.
That would not?
That probably would not.
Oh.
I hate to say that, but let's face the music here. When you start spending their tax money, it's and you try to reason with them, like if they're not in jail, if we had other programs, you may. I had a backyard conversation when I was out campaigning with somebody out at the lake that would not agree with any of this. I'll guarantee you.
And they don't realize the trickle-down effect, though, that's happening in the community with the families and the children and the behavioral problems. This is all tied together.
But we all know that. But there are people out there that just cannot understand that. That's unfortunate.
Mr. Chairman, for my clarity.
Yes.
Other than this program, how many alternative programs do we have out there now?
We just heard a couple of stepping up.
We got the Stepping Up program.
Behavioral deflection.
Behavioral Plus. How many other ones?
The JDAI, but the biggest one is clearly the 24/7.
And the drug court.
Yeah, the biggest one for the jail is clearly the 24/7 program.
Right.
Clearly. I mean, that's,
So we've probably got minimum of a half a dozen right now?
Yeah.
And is this getting too big to manage?
It's, Mr. Chairman, if
We
that's
got
it.
this going on and this
Yeah.
and this, excuse me,
No.
just a minute.
Yeah.
We got all these programs going on, which are great, and I'm a firm believer in them. But are we getting too much on our plate to manage?
Okay, I think you had a comment.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it's always going to be a lot. I mean, and especially the alternative programs, there's a lot of complexity to them because you're dealing with you're dealing with human beings on an individual basis in general. And so, yeah, it gets pretty complex, and you're dealing with people that are resistant to help in some cases.
All these different programs are taking different sorts of people in different sorts of situations. So, it's just, you kind of need all these different
So would it be
things.
safe to say that the behavioral deflection program that we spoke about earlier, those individuals could go into a facility like what you're saying until they're able to come out? Is that an option? Or what type of people are you looking for to house in your facility?
To start out on a prototype, we're going to use the criteria that the drug court uses to qualify people to get into their program.
Okay.
And if 40% of those people don't have a place to stay other than going back into the environment they came from, that's who we want to deal with. There are going to be people that are going to come from outside the county wanting into this program. This is not a homeless shelter. It's a staffed, legitimate program.
Transition.
Yeah, transition from
Transition
jail
to come
or
back on the
just-
street, functioning back on the street.
All right, good discussion.
Matt,
I think,
Matt wanted to say one more thing when I had said
I don't know how pertinent it is, but Myron brought up a subject of what other people say, and the last time I realized what the commission does is to have strength enough to stand up in front of this community and tell them what they need, even if they don't like it, because the people around this board, or on this board, stand for all the people, as you've well spoken.
That's right.
But there's a lot of talk and it's just talk. And you guys have the obligation to do things that are necessary in our community, not what other people just want. You talk, listen to us all. And two of us are here today asking for help, not for ourselves, but for this community. And I'm here to tell you, even if you don't want to listen, it's time that we do it. But I thank all of you for all that you do, because I know it's a thankless job. But I thank you this morning for doing what you do for us, even if sometimes we don't understand. Okay?
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks,
We
Matt.
certainly
Bruce.
appreciate what
Thanks,
you're doing.
Bruce.
And we certainly will take this request into consideration. All right, is there any other individuals that would like to address the board at this time with any requests during this? I think that as long as I've been on the board, this is the first time someone from the general public has ever appeared at a budget hearing. Anyone else?
Well, Mr. Chair, it's obvious to me that they're passionate about this, and I think it warrants us taking a close look at it to see what their plan is.
And hopefully by that time, we'll meet with Cindy and maybe have some more direction for you and a little more to...
All right.
We just have to keep in mind, this is just a budget. If it's in there, doesn't mean we are going to use it. It's just in place if we need to, if things progress along.
I can certainly appreciate Mr. Kranz's passion and the other gentleman's passion, and I appreciate that, and their caring. They come in and ask for the amount they mentioned, and I'm trying to project this in my mind down the road 5 years, and I'm seeing 300,000-400,000.
Well, as far as making the thing run. And that's,
Right.
You know, some of the things some of the institutions that were referred to, I think we need to find out where their funding is coming from.
Well, like the Beacon Center receives funding through the United Way. I mean, it's not just 100% totally.
No,
city funded.
I know that, I appreciate that, and the United Way is all based on volunteer. I mean, we ran into the city not too long ago, and they said, well, maybe we're going to have to put some of this on hold. How much extra money do they have? I mean, I don't know.
I think my concern it should be, but it probably is not so much the dollar amount that we're talking about here, but it's how is it going to, what kind of a track record? I mean, do we have something that they'll be able to report back to those people that donate or those people that are supporting that facility? I don't want to create a place where chaos to break out. You understand? It has to be well run, it has to be managed, it has to be supervised, and that costs a lot of money to find those people that are able to do that.
I can tell you, the St. Francis House, I went down and visited, they're building a new facility. It's $5 million facility, and they have such community buy-in now because they know it works. They already had over $3 million raised just from public donations, and I know Sioux Falls is bigger, and the network that they have amongst the hospital, the hotels, and the transit system, I mean, and they didn't start out that way. I mean, they started out somewhere very small too, but they just have such a community buy-in and participation that makes that work, and that's where they get a lot of their donations.
What's another good example of community support would be the Boys and Girls Club. You know, they just opened that, and thanks to their capital campaign, they were able to make that work. Now, there's a lot of support at the county and city levels as well, but it's vital to our community to have those things. And Watertown has always stepped up and made success out of programs that they believe in.
That are passionate
I really think
and
we
worthy.
should, but I think it would be well worth the time maybe to direct, the help initially to coming up with a very solid plan, kind of an operation/business plan, and to talk about deal with all the things we're talking about here.
Yeah. It's a work in progress. It's a big
this-
thing, and you want to do it right. I mean, obviously, we don't want it to be something that is not well thought through.
No, and I don't think that the amount of time that's left on this year's budget is something that, a few days, if I was a banker, which we are, I would want to see a very in-depth plan.
Just take the top
And we're not
section
seeing
and
it.
pass them over.
But
There's
the
3
principle
pages.
is good,
Yep.
and to
They're
come
all
back with
sorted.
it more worked out.
There you go.
There's some estimations in this plan, and we don't operate on
All right,
estimates.
at this time,
Same thing.
I think that, is there anyone else that would like to address the commission during the public
You're supposed to take the top.
input?
Yeah.
Seeing none, I think at this time I'll close the public
Thank you.
portion of this meeting. And I think we've pretty well beat this thing to death as far as the board is concerned, so.
I had a couple of budget, things to talk about, but maybe it's not, maybe I can do that during the open, whatever you prefer, Mr. Chairman.
I would discuss them now,
Okay.
if based on your worksheet.
Yeah.
Nope, I would discuss
I'm
those
not-
now. This is the
Not
time
speaking
for
as a
it.
member of the public, but since we're, let me put it on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a sheet with blue printing, if that's okay.
You have that in your packet, it's got the
Yeah.
blue line on the top. Is that what you're referring to, Lee?
Yeah, just, so.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, this is just to summarize a number of the things we've been talking about off and on regarding the budget. It's on the screen there too. You can, so just, if you take a look at the right column there, the big item is, we're probably not gonna, because the court remodel is not going to finish, it'll finish right about New Year's timeframe, right toward the end of the year, somewhere in that timeframe. So we're not going to get billed for the entire amount. So this is, that $201,000 is that project amount, but we need to put it in the budget for next year because we're likely to have to pay it. That's 10% of the overall project cost, plus 5% retainage, which is the standard for the construction part of it. So not the architect part of it, but the construction part of it. So we should save roughly that, so that would be roughly that amount we wouldn't spend this year out of what we budgeted, and just kind of, this is effectively, moving it to next year's budget. Now, these are budget numbers, so they're not as exact as I can get them at the moment. The data analysis point is something we started alluding to with a number of the things we've been talking about with behavioral health, JDAI. I think that might be something wise to put aside so we can pay somebody like say an Aaron Sorska in Minnehaha County to help us from time to time. I don't think that'd be a full-time thing. That'd be kind of maybe some services that we ask for to get some data analysis kind of put in place. The fire alarms and the sprinklers, they're not next to each other on this little table, but those are rough amounts. Looking at the sprinklers first, we want to do the rest of the courthouse. We talked about that. So floors, so this floor on up, basically, in the courthouse. I'm sorry, not this floor, but this floor on up in the courthouse at some point in the near future, and that's something that we talked about when we were talking about the fire alarm bids. So the fire alarm cost should be somewhat less. We don't know exactly what it would be once the sprinklers and once the fire alarm folks can plan for that. So those amounts there, again, are rough, and I'm perfectly open to suggestions. Those are my ideas. Furniture, that is something that I don't think it's going to be near that amount of money, but there are going to be a few items to pay for as a result, and we've already done some. We've already approved a few of those expenses. There is about, I want to say, Cindy, there's the judicial systems other line that has $10,000 in it. That's what we've been using for this type of stuff, and we budget that every year, so maybe we need to make that a little higher this year. Otherwise, I think if that's a problem, I think we'd probably be okay if we kept that, in the closer to the 10,000 area, but that's kind of a high amount, just a kind of a just-in-case amount. Going down, then the pre-design for the jail, that's hiring an architect as a consultant to, as the CCJAC recommended that we budget for that, so that sometime in calendar year 2019, if we want to, we can go back and say pay an architect to walk us through a concept for the jail, especially as you saw in the paper recently. The city is now seriously talking about someday a city hall going on the auditorium block, and so we need to think about that again in terms of location. I don't think it's going to cost that much. When we did this for the current, or the leading up to the last vote, it was under 20, I want to say it was about 25,000. So I don't think it's going to cost near that much. However, to have the flexibility, if we did want to go RFP it again, I'm fine either way. And you can look at the bids that we got when we did this last time. So when we put it out for bids or not bids, for proposals in 2016, the prices ranged anywhere from in the 20,000s above 170,000. And that was just pre-design. So I don't think we need to spend anywhere near that high end, obviously, but to give us flexibility, that was my idea. And I'm open to a different amount. So just my suggestion. And then the tuck pointing, we can take that off because I guess the tuck pointers arrived today. So the bottom one that bottom line doesn't need to be there. So Milo said that they were here today. Oh, good. So, all right. So that just.
Did Milo say that we are on the calendar for tuck pointing? Okay.
Yeah, they're here. They showed up today. Yeah, they showed up today.
Okay,
so I think,
did.
Yeah. So
My question, Lee, is the same that I asked earlier. There's a couple of these items in here. For example, the $70,000.
For the pre-design?
That's not in the proposed budget as it stands today. That's not in there. Okay, there's another one in here that's not in there.
None of these are.
None of these.
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing them up.
Where are we going to? We got to balance the budget. We got to figure out where are we going to cut in order to make this work.
Here's what I would suggest, Mr. Chairman. I know that the top one that needs to be applied from the Future Building Projects Fund. So that's what we did last year for the remodel project.
That 25,000?
Yeah, no, the 201.
No,
201,000. So then the rest, if they relate to the courthouse, if we need to, I could say, say the pre-design for the jail, we could do that. We didn't do that last time when we did it. When we budgeted in 2016, we budgeted 100,000 within the regular budget without applying additional funds, and spent 20-some thousand instead of the 100,000 on that. So I think there's some room there, particularly when you're talking about maybe the fire control stuff and the pre-design stuff, to apply that from the Future Building Projects Fund. So, we're going to do the math with the projected revenue, correct? We do some math with projected revenue and see how that all comes out.
We're already applying $800,000 in surplus cash to balance this budget before any of this.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
The budget is balanced as of today without any of this.
Right.
And this is the reason I'm saying that.
It's going to mean more surplus cash to be applied.
We got to have a miracle happen here to create a lot more revenue in order to cover this.
Yeah, our estimated revenue does not cover our budget at all.
So that's why I made the comment. We got to rob from Peter to pay Paul.
So that 64,000 on tuck pointing is already in the budget.
That's in the budget for this year.
That one
goes
Cindy?
away. Yes.
Roughly, what do we have in the Future Building Fund? In the Future Buildings Fund or whatever?
And then we just had another request it started out at 50, and all of a sudden it was at 100,000. I don't know what we're talking about, 50 to 75,000?
It said 50 to 75.
So that's a chunk of money there too, that we don't have.
Well, and I made my feelings known about what that looks like down the road.
Yeah.
We have assigned for future building projects $4.3 million.
Well, I'm going to throw a proposal out there.
Well, yeah, but you can't make a motion.
Just suggest, no, it's not a proposal, just a thought. If I can. The sprinklers is part of we wouldn't be doing the sprinklers if it wouldn't be for the remodeling of the courthouse. We wouldn't be doing the furniture. Fire alarms, maybe that's questionable. I don't the data analysis. I'm not sure what that
wouldn't be future building projects. That would be just.
And the top one for the other, I would I could see where those should all come out of the Future Buildings Fund money.
Yeah, that would make sense. I would agree with that. So you're saying the fire, Mr. Chairman?
The total of all those.
I think it's just over 500,000.
500,000. So, and that's without the request that we heard this morning too. So we're talking about 500+ thousand that is not in this budget that we have in front of us right now. Just to enlighten everybody so we know where we're at.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, and I would say that, given what Cindy said, we could, let me go back and, I think we can, there's a few of the numbers we can bring down a little bit.
But we don't have, this
don't
is
need
a
to do it
good
right now.
discussion, and that's what this is for.
Yeah.
So we will approve the budget at the end of September, and by that time, maybe you can hammer on these numbers, and let's take another look at them at a later date, okay?
Suffering a power outage?
What? You out?
Suffering a power outage in here?
No.
Oh, my light's on.
But my electrical stuff is not working.
Yeah, mine's
Came
not,
back
mine's not charging either.
Our mics are on. It must be an outlet issue because our mics are
Put
still
another quarter, let's collect quarters and put them, drop them in the slot.
Is your power strip?
We're talking about budget, so.
Did you pay the bills this month?
Look under your desks to make sure nothing has been picked up.
I don't have anything on my desk.
Okay, we've had a few issues with the construction project downstairs.
If we have a
Last
longer
week, we
meeting.
lost our phones. Yeah.
Are we up and running again?
No, I still have no electricity over here, but that's okay. We'll continue.
All right,
Might need that.
so that being said,
Run an extension.
we will go on. Like I said, now we'll do it officially. Close the public hearing in reference to the budget. We'll pick this up again not next week, but 2 weeks from now. Now let's go into number 10, action to approve the courthouse remodel project change orders. We heard, I called it a change order, and Lee corrected me, said it wasn't a change order, but it was a change order.
We do have,
You have anything else, Lee?
yeah, we do have some change orders, so we
Oh,
actually.
you have some change orders?
Yep, and that's
So,
what-
official change orders,
Yeah,
okay?
real ones, okay. So basically, these are two change orders, Mr. Chairman. One is a additional cost of $989, and this was, I wasn't aware of this, but this was it's an interior design suggestion, essentially, that there's going to be, I don't know if you look at this room, you see the panels and the insets. There's a similar setup in the future courtroom with these kind of framed casing and then that kind of lower part. The plan is to put acoustical panels in those spaces, so for the sound control. So that's already in the plan. This change order would make the edges of those beveled as opposed to square, which is I'm guessing is a aesthetic plus probably I guess a wear and tear and maintenance issue as well. So to do that, that's $989.
Say that again, make them doubled, I'm not...
Beveled.
Beveled.
So the edge would be
Yeah, right
beveled.
here.
Yeah, I know.
Beveled as opposed to
okay.
square.
This is what we're talking about,
Oh,
sorry.
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Is it the cosmetic thing?
It's partly cosmetic, and I think, I'm guessing I think it was suggested by the interior designer that the architect has, I guess. And I could see it might help with the wear and tear on those if people are brushing up against them, I would suppose. But that's now the other thing. Before we vote on that, let me hit on the other change order. The other change order is to remove a plan to put a bronze emblem at the back of the courtroom, like behind where the judge's bench. The architect put that in the plan because that's something they see in other things. But I asked the court, do you really want that? And they said, no, we don't need that. And that's a savings. That would be a savings of just under $3,000. So that's a good thing. So on the whole, with change orders, we're in the black, so we're actually gaining money. So it's mostly because one of the initial change orders was to, or it was actually a credit, was to take out a piece of equipment that we don't need. So.
Lee sounds like a salesman. Right?
No,
The more we spend, the more we spend, the more we make.
Well, that's
right?
not quite what I said, Mr. Chairman. I'm just saying that change orders can go both ways. Change
I know
orders
what you're saying.
can be negative or positive, and so you got one in the additional cost of $989, and one a reduction in cost of $2,969.
All right, is that a motion, Lee?
Do I need to make a motion? Can I make a motion to approve both of them?
Yes.
Cindy?
Well, I'm for one and opposed to the other, so how?
Well, it's always in the
Okay.
affirmative then when you vote.
All right, let's
So we
separate
separate
them.
them out.
On different meetings, there would be 100,000 reduction.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's separate them, Lee, and let's do the 989.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve that one. I like the suggestion. I trust the interior designer on that one, that's a good suggestion.
And that's to bevel the edges instead of squaring them up.
Right, on the acoustical panels.
All right. You heard the motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Commissioner Waterman seconded.
Okay.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any more discussion? Seeing none? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign.
Aye.
No.
Okay, so let's do a roll call vote, okay?
Gable.
Aye.
Waterman.
Aye.
No.
Johnson. Van Duzen.
No.
Hanson.
No.
All right, the noes have outweighed the ayes.
Not going to be beveled.
The motion fails. All right, let's go on then to the next request, and that's for a reduction of $2,969. That is the elimination of some...
It was an emblem that would
emblem.
have to be cast in bronze at the back of the behind the judge's bench. So
right.
I make a motion that we approve that change order, which is a reduction in cost of $2,969.
Second.
Okay, all right, we have a motion by Gable, second by Van Duzen. Any discussion? Do you want to repeat your motion one more time so we're clear on it?
Change order to remove the bronze state seal from the courtroom, from the project, at a reduction in cost of $2,969. And that's otherwise known as PR number 9.
All right? Everybody clear? Everybody understand it? Any discussion? Any discussion? Anything? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. The motion carries. All right, let's go on then to number 11, action to approve bills for payment.
I have nothing for 11 or 12.
Good, let's go to 13, action to approve personnel changes. We have a couple of them, and they are in your packet.
The first one is Correctional Officer Lindsay Strickerts, due an anniversary step increase to step 12, $22.86 per hour. Second one is Correctional Officer Shauna Carter, also due an anniversary step increase to step 12, $22.86 per hour.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion by Van Duzen, a second by Hatton. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Travel requests, we have one.
One for an appraiser in the Director of Equalization Office to attend the district meeting in Webster.
Move to approve.
Motion by Hatton, second by Waterman. Any discussion? Any discussion? See no discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Any old business that we need to hammer on this morning? Any mature or old business? Any old business? Seeing none, let's go on to new business. Any new business? Seeing no new business, how about the open?
There could be a quorum of commissioners tomorrow at the Republican meeting at noon. And next week, of course, we will all be out in Pier. Well, some
There
of us.
will be no meeting.
There will be no meeting.
No meeting on the 11th.
There probably will be a quorum of commissioners at that as well.
Is that it?
That's all I
Mr.
have.
Chair, I don't know if there could be a quorum of commissioners at the pod meeting coming up on Thursday from 1 until 3 at the fire station. I know I'll be there.
All right.
Everybody else is going.
Is there anything else? I have a retirement meeting in Pier on Thursday, so I'll be out of town on flying out in the morning, coming back, flying back at night, so I'll be gone during the day. Anything else? Seeing none, let's go on then, and we do have a request for an executive session, and that would be reference number 4.
Make a motion to go into
We have a
executive
motion
session
by
under
Hatton to
4.
go into executive session. Is there a second by Gable? Any discussion? Seeing none, we are in, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We are in executive session. Thank you. And I doubt that there will be any business. Yes, sir.
What are you all going to?